Today I'm going to show you how to make this fabulous rhubarb tart with confidence in your own kitchen. So let's get started. We're going to make the tart crust first. We're going to combine the butter and powdered sugar in our stand mixer and cream on low. You want to do this until it's nice and smooth and creamy. Then we're going to add the egg just a little at a time. Don't add it all at once. It can become curdled and hard for the butter to absorb all the egg, so a little at a time is best. After you mix the egg in, go ahead and stop your mixer and scrape down the paddle. Just make sure you get everything into the mixer so it's all combined. Then we're going to add our dry ingredients. We want to make sure that we add this in 2 to 3 additions. We do it slowly so that the butter has time to absorb all of the dry ingredients and so that it's not all dry and crumbly. If you add it all at once, it can actually be really hard to mix the dough. So once it's done mixing, we're ready to roll out the tart crust. Now, I roll my tart crust out straight from the mixer, but if your dough is too sticky, put it in the refrigerator for 30 minutes and then roll it out. Form your dough into a disc, dust it with flour, and then you're going to begin rolling this into a 12 to 13 inch circle. Turn the dough about a quarter turn every few rolls, and as you'll notice when I'm rolling, I keep my rolling pin in the middle third of the dough. I don't roll out to the edges on the top and bottom. Just make sure you do that and turn the dough so that it doesn't stick to the mat. If you find that it's sticking underneath or on top, dust it with a little more flour, and you can always put more flour underneath the dough. Just lift it gently and put more flour under there so it doesn't stick. So once you have it rolled out, we're going to transfer this to our tart pan. This is a 9.5 inch tart pan. Just gently lift it. Just be careful, be slow in the process so you don't tear the dough. And then I'm just going to center this here so you can see it better, and then pull that dough back. If it rips just a little bit, it's okay. This dough is super forgiving and it's really easy to just press it back together. Once the dough is in the pan, then you're going to press it into the pan. So press along the bottom and press along those edges and along the sides, and make sure that you have this dough nice and firm in the tart pan. Next, we're going to cut off the edges with a paring knife so that we have a nice clean edge. Once you're done with trimming the dough off, you're going to go ahead and prick the tart crust. I do it about every inch apart. Just make sure you do it pretty well. We are going to be lining this with parchment and pie weights, but we still want to make sure that there are no air bubbles in the dough as it bakes. After you prick the dough, go ahead and pop the tart crust into the freezer for an hour, and this is going to get it really nice and cold so it bakes well. So next we're going to go ahead and line our tart crust before it bakes. We're going to do this with a piece of parchment and some pie weights. So I'm just forming a little liner for my tart crust. I like to do this by cutting a piece of parchment paper into a round shape so it's the same shape as the tart pan. And then I'm going to cut little slits in the paper and open it up. And as you can see, those little slits allow it to just slide right in along the edges, so it's really easy and it doesn't crinkle or make indents in the crust. Next, I've added some pie weights. I'm just pressing these out so that they're nice and even. And then I'm going to bake this tart crust for about 25 to 30 minutes. After I bake it, I'm going to pour the pie weights out. If your tart crust is still looking a little bit light, you can pop it back into the oven for another 5 minutes. And of course, make sure you get all those pie weights out. From here, you can set the tart crust aside, and we're going to make our rhubarb filling. Begin by slicing the rhubarb stalks into thin slices. You do not want big, thick slices or you will get little fibers and they aren't really good texturally to eat. So we slice this really thin. Then we're going to add the rhubarb to a pot. We're going to add some strawberries, some sugar, some vanilla bean paste, and some water. And then we're going to bring that to a simmer and cook it for about 5 minutes. So I've just added the cooked rhubarb to this blender and I'm going to blend it until it's really smooth, about 1 to 2 minutes. As you can see, it looks really smooth and creamy. And then I'm going to add some cornstarch, which is a good thickener that we want so the juices don't leak out during baking. Transfer the rhubarb filling to your fridge and let it cool for a while you make the frangipane. Frangipane is another word for almond cream, and it's really easy to make and super delicious. So we're going to combine unsalted butter and granulated sugar in a bowl. Mix. You can also mix with a stand mixer if you prefer. And then we're going to add our egg a little at a time. So mix that first addition, and then you're going to add the next addition. Make sure that's just creamed in really well. And then we're going to add in our essential ingredient, which is almond flour, because this is almond cream. So you want to get that almond flour mixed in until it's nice and creamy. And then I have some almond emulsion that I'm going to be adding here as well. Now you could add almond extract, but I prefer emulsions just because I like the flavor profile a little bit better. Once the frangipane is done, it's time to assemble the tart. This is super easy and quick. So we have our cool tart crust here. We're gonna add raspberry jam or preserves. You can pick whichever one you prefer. Spread it in the bottom of the tart crust. Spread to the edges. You don't need to spread up on the sides. Just coat the bottom of that tart shell. Next, we're going to add the rhubarb filling. This is really easy to add once it's been cooled. Spread it into the tart crust. Use an offset spatula so you can form a nice even layer. If you don't have an offset spatula, you can use a mixing spatula as well, but this is far easier. Next, we're going to add the frangipane. If your frangipane is feeling a little cold or stiff, warm it up in the microwave for maybe 5 to 10 seconds, and then it should be really spreadable. However, if you had soft butter to begin with, this should be really easy to spread. So go ahead and form that into a nice even layer, and then we'll be ready for the last step. To finish, we're going to add some rhubarb stalks on top of the frangipane. Now, this is up to you how you do this. I've just done them in these short little stalks to make this little concentric wheel. I think it's really cute, but be creative. Do whatever you want with it. Then we're going to bake this, and voila, our tart is finished.